welcome back for The Last of Us Part 8. Today we're asking important questions like, was there any money left in the prop budget for a realistic horse? What does human meat actually taste like? And does anybody still use or make toothpaste anymore? Find out the answer to these and more here. So, another familiar story with episode 8. Amazing. Amazing visually, amazing writing, amazing acting, amazing storytelling, but altogether far too rushed. Far too rushed. I said it last week, this episode of this story, this particular story, what was it called? What We Need, or What We Need He Gives. I can't remember the name of it now, but basically episode 8 needed to be two episodes. The story of David's group and the sort of winter, Joel's in the winter. This year in winter, and Joel's out of action. Ellie's taking the main focus. She's the lead here, so the roles are reversed. Ellie is in the sort of protector, and Joel's the one who's vulnerable. So, and she meets up with David's group. So this whole story of David's group and Ellie's interaction with them needed to be 2 episodes. We spent a whole episode last week on Ellie's backstory, which never got a payoff. It never had a final, it never finished, really, yeah? I was thinking it was going to finish in this episode, but I have a fear now it's going to finish in next week's episode. But we'll come back to that. Anyway, the story here, this time, is where we have another group of survivors. So this is the 3rd group of survivors that we've met after leaving the initial Boston QZ. So first you had the Kansas City survivors, then you had Jackson, and then you have the David's group, yeah, the Silver Peaks group. And there's 3 very separate roads or paths that humans have kind of taken. One is like almost anarchy. Kathleen's group in Kansas it's sort of anarchy, really. They were a rebellion, and they've just taken control over Fedra, and they're very militaristic. Yeah. Then you've got the Jackson crew, which is kind of a utopian version of what humans could do. You know, they're a commune, they work together, it's peaceful, it's serene, they are happy, they're healthy, they have a thriving community. And then you have David's group, which is kind of a more religious cult, where people are looking to a singular leader as like a savior. So you got those. I like the way they've portrayed the way the story portrays the 3 types of people or groups. Yeah. So in this one we're getting David's zealot group, and the character of David is a really sort of fascinating one, because he's so villainous, and he's generally, of all the people that we've kind of met so far, he's the one who's the sort of the most out and out evil. If it comes down to he's like at best he's a cult leader, at worst he's a cannibalistic murderer. Yeah. So to see him betrayed, and he was betrayed brilliantly. I love the actor. I don't know his name. I'm gonna have to look it up. I love the actor. Really does it well. I feel sorry for him though, because the main gripe I have with this story, and with a lot of the stories in The Last of Us, is that he doesn't get time to be fleshed out. So Ellie meets up with David. She's gone hunting to get some food for Joel to eat, you know. So she's gone hunting. She manages to snag a deer. Now, when she's going to collect the deer, so she meets up with David and James. James, who, by the way, an Easter egg, played by Troy Baker, who voiced Joel in the games. So that was cool. Cool wee nod. So she meets up with David and James, and she wants medicine for Joel. She wants penicillin. So James goes back to get the penicillin, and Ellie and David start having this conversation. Now, it's very, very quickly revealed that David knows exactly who she is and that he's after her. So there's no time really for it to breathe and for suspense to build. Had they spent a little bit longer together, and so if they spent a little bit longer together, built up a trusting relationship a little bit, so you're not 100% sure if David's a villain, but you're absolutely convinced and 100% positive David is a villain within 20 minutes of the episode. So the big reveal that he's a villain is not really a reveal. It's because you never really got to know him. So had you spent an episode where Ellie is getting a relationship or creating a trust bond with David, and we don't really know David's intentions, he could be a genuinely good guy, and then he flips in episode 2, the payoff is much better. But right now we just rush through it 100 miles an hour. It's just goes through at lightning speed. This episode is only 45 minutes long, whatever it is, so just nothing ever gets a chance to breathe. And that's the main problem with it, because the story is so good, it's so well written and acted, that they can kind of make up for that speed of delivery, but it's still it hurts because I want to see more. There's a scene which has absolutely no tension in it whatsoever. There's a scene where every scene in this episode, by the way, is lifted directly from the game, like directly. It's like a direct one-to-one transition from game to screen. So there's one particular where Joel is torturing these two guys who've come to kill him. Yeah, and he's torturing them, but it's over within 3 minutes. Now, if that was a 10-minute long sequence where you really see Joel torturing these guys, and then he goes and bashes another guy to death once he's got the information from the first guy, like if that was a 10-minute long scene, it would go to prove and show the lengths at which Joel is willing to go to save Ellie, which would then give the finale much more credence. But for this, it's like he stabs the guy in the leg, says, "I'm going to pop your kneecap off if you don't tell me where you are." Guy instantly tells him where he is, he kills him, walks over, bashes the other guy's head in. You don't see him bashing the other guy's head in. It's just done off screen. Boom. It's done. Whole scene takes 3-4 minutes. And it's just, that could have been a 10-15 minute long sequence. And you get in and see Joel's character. And see, again, you might have to, because the idea of Joel is that he's not necessarily a good guy. But he's good to the people he cares about, and he's not good to the people who threaten the people he cares about. So to have it over so quickly, you kind of forgive Joel a little bit because it doesn't seem that bad. But if you properly saw him torturing these two guys, you might start to think about Joel's character a little bit. And that's the mark of quality storytelling, quality characters that are a little bit grey. So the same thing is true with David. To have him basically be such a evil character straight, like almost from the off, there's like a 5-minute intro of David where you're not entirely sure if he's good or bad, and then we basically meet up with Ellie and we know that he's bad. So it turns out that the person that Joel had killed 2 episodes ago at the end of the university, when Joel got stabbed, he killed someone. Turns out that was one of their group. So they want revenge. Now, in the game, the entire group is aware and they're knowledgeable that they are cannibals, that they eat meat. So that makes the whole group more compelling. In the show, they've changed it slightly so that only David and a few select people know that they're cannibals, which changes the dynamic quite significantly, because it does make Joel's decision to be how viciously he treats them seem it makes him seem worse. In the game, they're out to kill him, and they all know they're cannibals, so they know they will eat him. So when he tortures them and kills them, you as the protagonist, I feel like he is justified in this response. I get the way they're trying for the idea that Joel doesn't care, like, what they are. They've taken Ellie, so he's going to do what he has to do to get her back. Which again, if they'd just given more time for that to breathe, more time for that to settle before rushing on to the next bit, that would have made much more sense. So Ellie is kidnapped by this group. They're taken back to it's a resort, Silver Peaks Resort. It's like a ski lodge or something. She's put in this cage, and she's having this back and forth with David, who David basically reveals to her that he is this psychopath, essentially. He's not a religious guy at all. He's a psycho. He is religious. He has a faith, but he worships the infection. So which I believe is something that the game was going to have as a story element, but they took out, so they've managed to put it back in here. And I thought that was actually quite interesting, having someone actually worship the infection. Like, have someone think of the infection as something different than just a straight up disease. That's an interesting dynamic. But again, it's not given any chance to develop or breathe. It's just done, and he says it, and then he's done. So we could have explored that in another episode. But no, the character's just given a two-dimensional arc where it's like, I'm a villain. Again, portrayed brilliantly. So I can't discredit the actor, or the writers even. Well, I can't discredit the writers because they've made that choice. And it makes the series as a whole seem poorly planned out. Like, we got 2 episodes for Kathleen, a new character. I mean, 2 episodes for her, and only 1 episode for David and his whole crew. It's just, that's criminal. Whoever looked at the plan of the game and thought, this bit's going to be this episode, this is going to be this episode, this is going to be this episode, really didn't plan it very well. The Left Behind DLC should have been spread out in little chunks across the series. 5 minutes an episode maybe. Then you could have it would have made very interesting flashbacks every now and again. Yeah. Kathleen, you put her in, that's fine. That's 1 episode. Kansas City is 1 episode. Yeah. Bill and Frank, that was good. Yeah. I think that one I would probably keep. But you get 1 episode to Kathleen, sparkle out the Left Behind DLC across the series, which frees you up for 2 more episodes. An extra episode for David's group and an extra episode for the finale. Because this has really given me fear for the finale. There is so much to pack into the finale now that if it's not an hour and a half long, then it is going to zoom past in at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and I'm nervous. So we will have to see how the finale plays out. I can't prejudge the episode, but I'm very concerned. So the final showdown between Ellie and David is shot really beautifully. Like, it's, again, a shot for shot transition from game to TV, and it looks brilliant. She's in the lodge is burning. It looked identical to the game. The set design is just phenomenal. It was so close to the game, I was actually expecting her to grab a can at one point and chuck it across the room to distract him, and she was going to have to stab him 3 times in the back to kill him, like you do in the game. But it was just a beautifully shot, beautifully acted, and then to see the rage and the violence which is inside Ellie come out at the end was just a thing. That was a thing of beauty. That scene is exactly what I'm talking about. She kills David in a brutal way, and it lasts for a long time. I mean, let's say long time, it lasts for about a minute. When you're killing someone, a minute is a long time. So she's killing him for that minute, and you get to see her face, and it focuses on her face, and it stays on her face the whole time, because it's about her. It's not about David. It's about her and what she's doing and her feelings. It's nothing to do with David anymore. So to have that sort of area, a space for the story, for her story bit to come out, was just brilliant. And then we finish on Joel and Ellie reuniting, and it's the first time that he says it, but it's not the first time he's felt it. The first time he says it, he calls her baby girl, like she is his daughter now. She is his daughter, she is his family, and he will do anything, I mean anything, to keep her safe. So going into the season, it's set up nicely for the season finale. Again, had this been 2 episodes and they'd been separated for longer, and Joel had been on much more of a mission to get her back, get back in touch with her, then it would have felt better. But they've set it up brilliantly for the season finale, which needs to be 2 episodes, but it's not going to be 2 episodes. The main problem with this series is that when it was being pitched, I assume that when it was being pitched, they weren't sure how successful it was going to be, and it's become a phenomenal success. Had they known it was going to be successful, they would have got 12 episodes, for sure, guaranteed. Unless they've gone down a D&D Game of Thrones Season 8 approach, where it's like, no, we can do this story in 6 episodes, or we can do the story in 9 episodes. We don't need any more. It's like, depends on who's to blame here. And the real tragedy is that Season 2, which will definitely get greenlit, is going to have more episodes, but that's the worst story. Season 2 is a bad story compared to Season 1. Season 2 is an awful story. It's not an awful story, it's a good story, but compared to Season 1 story, it's not comparable. So that's going to get more episodes. So I'm upset, I'm gutted. I wish they could go back in time, knowing how successful it was going to be, get 12 episodes, allow it every moment that needs it to, get its moment in the sun. So yeah, the other thing I thought was weird was that the horse dies, which is obviously tragic, and they go and Joel finds it, but it's like this awful dead horse prop. It looked really bad, and that took me out the thing for a little while. I don't know why it looked so bad, it just did. But that led on to another scene where you see some dead bodies hanging, and again, it's the true horror of what these people are actually doing, but that's gone in 5 seconds, and it's gone. So now we've just rushed through this. Again, another complaint. The only complaint I have with this series so far is everything is just rushed. Everything is rushed, and nothing gets a chance to settle and breathe, and it's a crime. So, all in all, the episode in isolation was good, really good, loved it. When I consider the implications it has on the rest of the series, I start to think it was not so good. And yeah, the whole idea, these 2 episodes this episode could have been done so much better. It could have fixed 2 problems with the show. One is the pace in which things get done, and the other is the infected. There's just no infected anywhere. There is no threat to the infected. The infected feel like they're not a threat at all, and that's a crime as well. Obviously the game is different in that you have large sections of time where you're in a combat sort of situation mode. You're fighting infected, because otherwise it's not a game. You're just watching cutscenes. Now this is different, but you still have to have this threat or fear about the infected. Ellie's walking around in the forest with seemingly no fear of the infected whatsoever. These guys are up here with they never mention the infected at all. So it just feels like they're not there. And you don't have to do much. You just have to say have 1 or 2 of them. And you could have fixed this episode where Ellie's going to hunt the deer. She finds the deer. Then they're attacked by an infected with her and David, and she and David fight them off together. Boom. They've instantly got this sort of trust and connection with each other, and she's trusting in David a lot more. Her trust in David goes up and up and up and up and up, and then when that reveal comes that he's a villain and he wants to kill her because she killed his friend or one of his crew, then it's a much bigger punch. But no, it doesn't happen. So we go into episode 9 with fingers crossed and hope that it can deliver. But I mean, I know it can't deliver because there's just no way you can deliver all the points that need to be delivered in an episode, which will not be more than an hour. I reckon it'll be 55 minutes. It'll not be more than an hour. So there's just no way they're going to be able to complete that, because you still have to complete the Left Behind DLC story for Ellie's past, like where we left her and Riley. Unless they're just going to leave that on a cliffhanger and be like, well, you know what happens to Ellie, so forget it. But anyway, still loving the show. It's still a must-watch for everyone, I would say. But there's just things that could be just done a little bit better that elevate it to the GOAT. So next week will be our last episode. We will do an episode review, then we'll do a season review of the whole thing as a whole. So if you agree with what I'm saying, if you think I missed anything, you think I missed the point of anything, if you want to just call me an idiot because I've got it wrong, feel free. But feel free to do that while you like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you next week.